Hey, what is up, people? Skywalker Hendrix here, back with another video for you guys today. And today, first off, I want to preface, we will be talking about the Acolyte, the most recent episodes of the Acolyte. And this is kind of a deconstruction of the show, of why I think that this show stays true to George Lucas' Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars in general. The show is getting entirely too much hate that I just don't understand, really. And if this show, I will say this right now, if this show was made by George Lucas, people would be praising this show. Say George came back, made this show. I have a feeling, so Leslie Headland, whatever you want to think about her, you know, we're leaving all of the kind of drama from the real world out of this right now. We're just basing this off what I've seen in the show. Her background, yes, it's concerning, but I don't know, like, y'all are so quick to judge people. I feel like Star Wars is just not... Star Wars has taught me that anyone can change. So, I don't know. I don't judge people like that. So, anyway, if this show was made by George Lucas, people would be praising this show. And I think it explores the Force no more than the Clone Wars does. It does not portray the Jedi worse than the Clone Wars does. George Lucas made the Clone Wars. First off, I want to say the fact that people are saying the Jedi are being portrayed like very poorly in this show, I just don't find to be true at all. This is where I feel like we're not watching the same show. I feel like the Jedi are being portrayed beautifully, but also shown how they end up in the prequels. George always set out to make the Jedi a flawed system. And really, in my opinion, George's true vision of what a Jedi should be is Luke Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi. That is what a true Jedi is. Not the prequels. I don't even think he portrayed the Jedi as like these great beings that never make mistakes. I've seen a big complaint over the Torben guy killing himself. Now, because apparently a Jedi should never, under any circumstance, kill themselves. Okay, well, a Jedi under any circumstance should never murder the entire Jedi Order. A Jedi under any circumstance should not put his clone legions against each other. A Jedi under any circumstance should not frame another Jedi for blowing up a portion of the temple. These are all things that happened in the Clone Wars, and people seem to forget that the Jedi are plenty flawed in that show and in the prequels, but God forbid a Jedi fucking offs himself. I get we don't want to normalize suicide. I get that point. But in my opinion, a Jedi would rather kill himself than blow up the temple or march on the temple or put two clone legions against each other. You know, like, George has never shied away from making the Jedi flawed. And yes, the idea of the Jedi should be something you strive towards. But people aren't perfect. Even the Jedi are not perfect. And we're seeing that in this show. And I think that is George Lucas Star Wars. I really do. I think George Lucas Star Wars, to me, is showing that no matter how good or how bad you are, You can always change, you can always make the right choice. You always have the option to make the right choice. And I've seen another complaint that this show is blurring the lines between evil and good, and there's no good or no evil, it's just whoever, it's all about perspective, which also kind of is another George Lucas Star Wars thing of point of view. And this show, I think, plays into that perfectly. The Jedi are still clearly in the right. Like, they're really still trying to do what's right. Yes, they're making decisions that maybe aren't the best for, like, that situation, or, they shouldn't... I'm trying to, okay, these witches in this last episode are clearly doing more shady, dark side things than the Jedi. Like, the Jedi, and we're gonna find out a lot more, but, like, dude, it's pretty clear to me that the Jedi are still the good guys in this story, and still are who we should be rooting for, especially off this last episode. I think it made it pretty clear that these witches are up to no good. And so the Jedi kind of have precedence to investigate what these witches are doing. I mean, they created a dark side being, or they created life through the dark side, essentially. And this is where we get into people saying that it ruins Anakin Skywalker's legacy. Well, I mean, the whole Darth Plagueis the Wise speech is Palpatine talking about Sith and dark side users trying to create life before Anakin was even born. Like, they had already been dabbling in this realm of the Force, and the whole... If this episode ruins the Force, I really don't understand how. The witches call it the thread and not the Force. Okay? Well, Dathomir witches call it magic. And in Rebels, the Lasat people call it the Ashla. Like, George Lucas Star Wars has established that many people interpret the wills of the Force. I swear, this show makes me... The criticisms for this show, there's always an example in the Clone Wars for me, which is George Lucas Star Wars. This falls in line with anything in that show, in my opinion. And in my opinion, the Clone Wars kind of destructs the Force way more and investigates what the Force actually is way more than this show probably ever will. I have a feeling this is the extent of ruining the Force or changing the Force. I don't see it. I think that the Clone Wars really explored the Force way more than anything we've ever seen in this show. I mean, this show keeps it pretty straightforward that, like, the Force, she still used verbiage that Obi-Wan and Yoda used when explaining the Force. It binds us. It's a thread that binds, like, it's the same fucking thing as when Yoda and Obi-Wan are saying it binds everyone together. She said the same thing. And people are acting like this ruins the Force for somehow this ruins the Force. Because she kind of explains it the same way, but, like, just a little bit different. Like, are people that mad that she called it a thread? Because then we should have been freaking out when Ahsoka and the Dathomir witches, or the Peridia witches, said the thread too. They said it too in Ahsoka. So, no one freaked out about that. But the second, and I don't know. This show was doomed to fail from the start. I think, and I will say, benefit of the doubt for the people hating on this show. Disney did this to the fans. I mean, I will admit the sequels really, this is the aftermath of what the sequels did to fans. And I don't like the sequels. I really don't. But I ignore them. And I enjoy what I enjoy. I like what I like. I just don't focus on the sequels. It's legit that easy. It's literally that easy. And I think this show has nothing to do with the sequels. And if anything, to me feels more in line with George Lucas' Star Wars than most things out there, I guess. I really feel like we're watching two different shows. The hate that I've seen for this show is mind-blowing to me. It is honestly mind-blowing. And I get the people. I am more of a conservative mind myself. But we live in America. That means we get the freedom to express ourselves and say what we want to say. And if Leslie Headland wants to make some lesbian witches in a show, and it has really no, I mean, it's not even focused on, they don't even kiss. They don't even kiss. It's not even really implied that they're like hardcore couple. Like, I get where that can be, like, we don't want our like real life political and social justice issues in Star Wars. There's always been allegories and metaphors in Star Wars for real life things, but it's never like super direct like that. So in my mind, the whole lesbian witch thing is blown so out of proportion. Y'all need to get a grip. Let people... We live in America. We live in America. So I have the choice to not approve of some people's lifestyles, but we're in America. So they have the freedom to live that way if they want to. That's the great thing about America. I can say I don't agree with that, but guess what? They're still people at the end of the day, and they still deserve respect and love and appreciation and all that stuff. Doesn't mean I have to agree with their lifestyle. But like, this is America. It's a free country. We get to do what we want. This is like, I get to talk on the internet about why I think this show is good. And people get to talk on the internet why they think this show is bad. We're just expressing opinions here. It's not that serious, guys. And man, I really hope that someone comes out and says that George approved of everything in this show, because that's all I've heard, is that this destroys George's vision, and I think it keeps George's vision alive. I think this show does more for George's vision than the sequels ever did. I think this show is more bold and more true to George Lucas's core values of Star Wars than the sequels ever were. This feels like true Star Wars. I mean, the Jedi, Master Soul, is the embodiment. And maybe we'll find out that he's even doing some shady crap. But, dude, if you're a Star Wars fan, one of your favorite characters is Anakin Skywalker. Like, how are we holding him to this godlike level, but then these Jedi that maybe made a bad decision on one day, and they're like, we're like, yeah, this isn't Star Wars. This is this is shit. This is like the Force is female. Like, I don't know where that even came from. People were legit saying that this episode made the Force female. Bro, I don't think we're watching the same show. I just really don't at this point. I really am lost, and that's why I felt the need to make this video, because for one, I want to show people they're not holding this show to the same criteria they hold the rest of Star Wars. They are criticizing this show on things that George did already in the Clone Wars. Go back, watch the Clone Wars. Watch Yoda train with the Wills. Do that for me. If you hate this show, go back, watch Yoda train with the Wills. Watch some Dathomir Witch episodes. And then watch the Mortis arc. And come back and tell me that is less of a deconstruction of what the Force is than this show. This show has... The Force is just the Force. I mean, it's pretty consistent across all bases here. It's not like the witches could, like, do anything we've never seen before with the Force. That's not even what happened. We've heard Palpatine talk about Sith that have tried to create life with midi-chlorians before. That's what they did in this show. George wrote that. Like, I'm really baffled. I don't think I don't think Osha and May are even chosen ones either. I think the head, like, witch lady made them through the dark side. More specifically, I think she made one of them through the dark side. And then the Force made the other one to, I don't want to say balance the Force, because the Force isn't balanced with equal dark side and equal light. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see this as anything significant at all. And lastly, getting into some more minor complaints, because these are just wild to me. Like, absolutely wild criticisms. For one, people are complaining that we didn't see how the witches died and how the witches just die. Clearly, we haven't seen that yet. Clearly, this episode, and maybe it went over some people's heads, but clearly this episode was from Osha's perspective only. I can't believe I'm explaining this. Like, I can't believe I'm explaining this. So, we saw Osha's perspective. There were a lot of things we did not see. People were like, oh, how was Soul right there? We haven't seen his perspective yet, or the Jedi's perspective. I think we started with Osha's. That's why y'all are confused. It's trying to make you confused. That's what the show's doing. And hey, hot take here. The show's working. The show's working. Like, I'm legit lost for words here. People were like, oh, how'd the fire get all over the place? How'd that thing just blow up off that one fire in the doorway? Clearly, we haven't seen it all yet. Something else is going on. Something else happened. You heard it when she looks up, when she escapes the first room, and she looks up and she hears it. We haven't seen that yet. Let the show play out. And then come back and nitpick or do whatever you want. But give the show a chance. I mean, give the show a shot to explain itself. We're in the 3rd episode. I mean, we haven't even seen how dude gets the scars. I mean, if you've seen any of the trailers, we know for a fact we see different perspectives of this same night. We see the Jedi igniting their lightsabers in that little where they're doing the chants and stuff. We see more than what we saw in this episode, and people are like, for some reason, acting like this was the only episode that was going to explain the backstory. I don't get it. I think this show was honestly, there's no way. There was no way this show was going to be accepted. And that's just really sad that all the baggage around the Leslie Headland and the marketing, although I loved the marketing when they showed actual footage of the show, there was a lot of stupid marketing, like the whole gayest Star Wars show shit. Leave that shit out of Star Wars. I'm sorry. My personal view, like I said, I'm a little more conservative. We don't need to make the gayest whatever. Like, just make a good Star Wars show. And I think that's what they did. But it was this weird, like, narrative around the show that it was, like, gonna... Like, it was... Like I said, it was doomed to fail from the beginning. Just based off who they hired. Some of the comments she made were pretty cringe early, and, like, a lot of things were taken from way in the past before she even was working on this show and, like, used as whatever. I'm just... The internet, stresses me out sometimes. Y'all are ridiculous, and I just don't think it's a reflection of reality and the real world that we all live in every day. And this is a long video. We're getting into it, but yeah, really, that's my thoughts. I really don't see how this show ruins Star Wars or destroys the Force or destroys Anakin's legacy. I think the Clone Wars did so much more exploration of the Force and Anakin than this show will probably ever do. I legit think that this has been a very simple exploration of the Force. We see it from a cult of witches perspective. Clearly, that's going to be a different perspective of what the Jedi see the Force as. We've seen it. Like, this is not even like a Disney Star Wars concept. This is a George Lucas Star Wars concept. He did it with the Dathomir witches. He did it with the Wills. He did it with Mortis. Like, do y'all forget that we had these... So, here's another, like, hot take. I think if the Clone Wars came out today, it would be hated just as much as this show. People would legit be like, oh, it ruined Star Wars. I feel that to a core, because I just don't see how this show does anything more different with the Force than the Clone Wars did. It's pretty simple. I mean, we see the Force used just like every other time it's used. To push things, pull things. That's how the witches use the Force in these episodes. It's no different. They just call it a thread. Which kind of makes sense still, because, well, it actually totally makes sense, because Obi-Wan described it as an energy field that binds everything together. How is that different than a thread? that binds things together. All right. I feel like that was a mic drop moment, but this is ridiculous, guys. I mean, this show has gotten, I can't believe it. I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like I'm losing it. Like I really, and I would love George to come out and talk about this show, because I have a feeling that he would love it. I really do. Like, this feels like George Lucas. I feel like I'm watching George Lucas Star Wars. Regardless of who made it, regardless of who ever made this show's personal views and personal lifestyles and what they've done in the past or what they haven't done in the past, who cares? This is America. We live in a free country. Let's just enjoy Star Wars. Let's not take it too seriously, please. I get that. Trust me, I get it. This is a lot of our childhoods. This is a lot of what made us who we are. Our core values lie in Star Wars. But I think this show just really hammers home some of those core values of, you can't judge people right away. Soul, not judging Osha right away, not thinking she is definitively the killer. The Jedi not being perfect, but still having that heart that knows they're not perfect. Like, they kind of do know they're not perfect. I don't know, guys. The hate for this show is crazy. I hope that this video kind of put some different things in perspective and made people hopefully think about things that happen in the Clone Wars that are just way more explorative of the Force than this show ever did or ever will do, probably. So I don't know. Hey, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe the show will make Anakin a lesbian and say that he was actually created by okay, I'm done. I'm gonna get in trouble. I probably already have gotten in trouble from what I've said in this video. But anyway, guys, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on the Acolyte. Do you agree with me, or has this show ruined Star Wars? But if it has ruined Star Wars for you, I want to know if you liked the Clone Wars or not. I really want to know, because they're one and the same in my opinion. I mean, this show lines up with the Clone Wars, honestly, so much. So let me know down in the comments. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Shout out to my channel members. Y'all are some G's. And yeah, stay tuned. I got some cool videos coming. I did have a little bit of a delay on the Mace Windu hot toy, so that is coming to the channel sometime soon. It's still coming, don't worry. But I also do have a really cool Spider-Man custom Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire figure, hot toy figure, coming from 6th Kiro on Instagram. If y'all are familiar with my custom Bespin Luke Skywalker, you know this guy does amazing work, and I cannot wait to showcase that on the channel. So stay tuned for that. I know it's not Star Wars, but dude, who doesn't love Spider-Man? I mean, come on. And I got a ton more videos coming to the channel. Like I said, daily uploads, at least trying. I might miss a day here or there, but for the most part, daily uploads. So yeah, let me know your guys' comment. This was a long Skywalker Hendrix ramble, but I would really appreciate to know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. So shout out to everyone for watching. Thank you. May the Force be with you. May the thread be with you. Ayy.